The finance arena can be confusing at the best of times, and it's worse when you throw in phrases like credit stacking and high ticket sales.
Here to break it down and offer expert advice to the funding space is visionary founder of the Boge Group, Andrew Imbesi. Andrew.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
So obviously credit stacking.
Yeah.
What is credit stacking?
Yeah, sure. It's basically the accumulation of applying for multiple credit cards so that you can have like a larger portfolio of credit cards to use, whether for business, investing, things of that nature.
Absolutely. Now, what are some of the biggest mistakes, I would say, in this space?
Sure. That's a very good question. I think maybe getting started without knowing how to disperse the proper amount of capital, right? Like say you want to get into a business or an investment, right? Maybe you only have $10,000 in your checking account, but really you need $50,000 or $100,000 to really make something work with the business. That's where things like credit stacking can come into play and actually give you the capital you need to start a business.
So how do you overcome those kind of obstacles? In your expert opinion, how do you implement these to your best advantage for these businesses to overcome needing that kind of capital to come into the business?
Sure, good question. So, really having a good credit score is the start of being able to get approved for these kinds of credit cards. Once you have a good credit score and you can start applying for those things, you have to know really the right places to go, what banks are going to approve you. You could take advantage of something called 0% interest on introductory offers, so you don't have to pay any interest on credit cards once you start making the minimum payment for the first 12 months usually.
Absolutely. Now, if someone really wants to take a whack at this, right, what's some advice you can give them?
It's simply a lot of confidence comes into play when making investments, when making business decisions. So first, you really have to have strong confidence. And if you really want to get involved in business or investing, right, this is a really good tool to not be abused that can really help you go from maybe you're doing some kind of 9-to-5 job, or maybe you're just only making enough to just get by, but you have bigger dreams of starting a business. This would be a very great tool for someone who wants to start a business but may not accumulate the money to start it for months, if not years. And they could take advantage of this, but if they're smart, they could really make something happen. But you obviously wouldn't want to be foolish with a lot of credit cards like that.
They mentioned words like smart and taking advantage. People need qualities like in any industry. You need to have certain tools, you need to have certain characteristics in order to succeed. So entrepreneurship and in the digital marketplace, what are the qualities you think as someone who's succeeded in this area that people need to succeed, to become one of the leaders like yourself?
Yeah, it's a very great question, honestly. And I think through coming across the path of thousands of different entrepreneurs online, probably the number one thing that I see is that it's not talent that ultimately takes someone so far. It's really the hard work, because for me, for example, when I started out, I didn't really have any knowledge. I wasn't very talented. All I knew was how to work hard and remain persistent, consistent, and have a lot of confidence in myself. And those are really like the big qualities, especially even maybe wanting to be on the news, right? It took a lot of those qualities to, really just have a lot of confidence to get on camera, have a lot of persistence to really get to where you are, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, before we go, talk to us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this space.
It's funny because just about the stories I've been mentioning, 3 years ago I was doing DoorDash, and I was maybe making $2,000-$3,000 a month. And there were some programs I wanted to take advantage of online, but I maybe had $2,000 in my bank account. And some of these courses or programs or mentorships, because a business mentor is super important for anyone who's looking to get into business. Having a mentor is very important, and I wanted to invest into some mentors, but I didn't have the money to invest into mentors. So someone had kind of got me credit cards without me really knowing. Like, I was applying for them. They were saying I was going to invest into marketing, but then I wound up investing into the mentorship. But if it weren't for that experience, I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am sitting here today, to be able to build businesses, because it would have taken me forever to save up all that cash to really get started with maybe Google ads, things of that nature, where it takes tens of thousands of dollars to really pump into that to make a substantial amount of money to be able to leave a job and and pursue a business.
Right. Well, Andrew, thank you
That's
so much
great.
for
Thank
coming
you,
in
yeah.
this morning. We appreciate you sharing your perspective today.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
To connect with Andrew and take your first step with credit stacking, visit bogegroup.com/home.